Hey guys, what's up? It is week 451. Let's dive right into the reviews, and this one is from Deaf Crocodile, and we're going to do this in a few parts. It's the 2551 trilogy. Norbert Pfaffenbichler, Austrian director here, and this is a trilogy of films, I believe, all made in 2021, 2023, and 2025, or so the early 2020s, or whatever. So, yeah, this is an oddball film, and I was seeing reviews that said, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Well, as a whole, probably, but I guess this is kind of a take made 100 years later of the Charlie Chaplin The Kid. And this is when my weakness in silent non-horror films comes in, if they're silent films and non-horror. I've seen some of the comedy stuff, but I'm not all that familiar with Charlie Chaplin. I will admit that. This is more of a genre kind of cult show. And I should watch some of them, of course, I understand. But so I'm missing on some of that kind of aspects. This takes place in what appears to be some sort of post-apocalyptic world that definitely is going to reflect some more modern times, especially if you listen to the commentaries. They kind of start breaking that down. We'll say, well, this is like this is like that. And you're like, yeah, I could see some of that, the rioting and all that kind of stuff like that. Everyone wears masks, but it's that odd kind of idea. Is like, are these people's faces? Or are they actually supposed to be masks? Or people like in that world where they're wearing masks? Like the second Planet of the Apes movie where everybody's like been like hit with radiation, so their skin is off, so they have these kind of odd kind of mask things on. And that kind of element like that. I was like, what exactly is going on? So this is an art film through and through. And I love, art in my films. I love films that have, artistic parts in them. But like kind of experimental art films, I think as I get older, a lot of them lose me. There's moments in films that are experimental art kind of pieces, which I love. But as an entirety, it's really kind of hard to grasp me for a full feature-length film. Usually I think experimental art films usually work better as shorts. I know that somebody like David Lynch has a lot of those elements in his films, but there's a little bit more, I think, more of general acting or typical filmmaking, which I can kind of vibe with in that. This reminded me of stuff like the Quay brothers, Jans Falkmeyer in terms of look, Delicatessen in kind of story, Mad God, the Phil Tippett movie, and even stuff like J. St. John, the J. St. John Shade movies, or those ones, or something that like Unearthed Films would put out, like Femme de Mort trilogy. So it's in that kind of weird Phil Stevens films, that kind of look, and I wouldn't say it's as that kind of disturbing quality, but I think that it does have certain aspects that could be looked at as that. So the production value in this movie is probably, the highlight, just the production design. Just the way that they clearly took a low budget, and with cinematography and lighting and sets, they kind of made something much more than what they had. I'm assuming this is probably a little bit of a more low budget kind of element, kind of film here. And with taking the sets and everything like that, you could tell in the lighting, they made kind of a unique looking film with, sometimes sepia tone kind of colors and black and white and stuff like that. As far as the story, it appears that this kind of, he might be kind of an outlander. He doesn't really fit with any of the people within here, and he helps this young child, and people are after him for him, and he's constantly beat down, and he's trying to help this child throughout the entire film, and they're being chased. At times there'll be kind of like heavy metal, like loud kind of crazy music, and then there'll be like kind of silly, kind of goofy, kind of laugh track kind of stuff going on, which reminded me of a bit of Apple Cart, of my friend Dustin Mills' movie, which I actually help with, because he's showing something horrible and you put the laugh track. It's definitely that kind of opposite. You're showing something horrible and you're kind of having a laugh at it, just kind of trying to invoke kind of emotion or thought process. But overall, I wasn't the biggest fan of this one. There's 3 films in here, and I definitely will watch the rest of the trilogy, and I think maybe just in terms of style, I'll start to pick up on things, and as the story progresses, maybe I'll become more invested. But as far as the first film is concerned, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. And I've noticed this a lot when I'm going through like the 80s stuff. I know I love like a lot of the other foreign films and things of that nature, but when it comes to like a lot of the experimental films and just a lot of noise and visuals, but this one does have a little bit more than that, I tend to get kind of bored very quick with it and just kind of lose lose interest. Has a story, but it definitely has more of a visual flair to it, more than that kind of idea. There's some visual shout-outs to stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre for most certainly, and there's some disgusting stuff going on here. I think real use of dead, like rats and stuff that have decayed, mummified, if you will, or if they're not real, they certainly do look real. And there is 4 discs in here, and the last disc has a bunch of shorts on here as well, and there's behind the scenes, which I'm looking forward to kind of checking out. The commentary on this first movie was interesting, and they pointed out kind of like modern day politics in terms with this and other things of that nature, and they definitely were big fans and very enthusiastic. But I'm a big fan of Deaf Crocodile as a label, but they do a lot of weird, bizarre films. And The Kid, the first part of this trilogy, did not speak to me very much. It's also the shortest and maybe the one with the least amount of story, but who knows? We'll get into Orgy of the Damned next week, and then The End the week after that. But this sounds like it's up your alley. If it sounds like any of those other movies that I mentioned, I do think like Mad God. I do enjoy it as a certain aspect, but Mad God is so bleak, it's just like a one and done for me, although I think it's great. And those other ones, I do find stuff that I do enjoy out of their work. It's not like I think they're all bad or anything like that, but I do think that there is relation to these stories kind of that reminded me of those films. All those kind of bizarre, weird oddities that I've seen over the years. Okay, the next one here is from Arrow Video, and this is a 4K of Under Siege. Yeah, that's right. I can't remember exactly. It had to be the early 90s. 92, I remember this. When this one came out, it was kind of a big deal. Probably saw it right away when it came out. Me and my family would always get all the new action films. This is by Andrew Davis, who did Final Tear from 83, which is a fun slasher film. He'd go on to do The Fugitive. I think The Fugitive is probably his biggest film, most successful movie. Also had Tommy Lee Jones in it. Like this film as well. So Under Siege, Steven Seagal had done Above the Law with Andrew Davis. That was, I think, his first kind of movie. And, Seagal was this Aikido master. Japan kind of had shrouded a bit in mystery. And, in modern days, Seagal has become kind of a joke, like his films, he's just overweight and he doesn't seem to move and he sits down throughout them. But the early days of Steven Seagal, like Above the Law and the Under Siege, Marked for Death, Hard to Kill, those movies were pretty popular and they were entertaining. And it kind of the same school of thought that although I do think Chuck Norris is a better actor and a much more likable personality than Steven Seagal, I think that you take somebody, and it makes sense because Andrew Davis did a Seagal movie, a Norris movie, Code of Silence. So you take somebody like Chuck Norris, and he's not an actor. He's a martial artist, first and foremost. And he does have a certain amount of charisma on screen, but you fill the movie with character actors. You put the bad guys that are bigger kind of, actors in there, and just to kind of carry the weight of the film. What is the one? Lone Wolf McQuay, has L.Q. Jones, and a bunch of people in it. And that's for good reason, too, because you take the actor's weakness, because he's not an actor's martial artist, and you put kind of actors to help carry him. And I think Under Siege does that really well in this one. I mean, of course, we have, Gary Busey and Tommy Lee Jones and Cole Meadley as the bad guys. And they're really strong in this one. We also have a whole room full of, kind of the, political generals and all that kind of stuff, and political guys and generals and army strategists. And that stuff, they're all like, good actors, recognizable character actors that you never remember their names. But there's just this movie's surrounded, there's a bunch of like character actors and good solid actors around Seagal. Now saying that, the writing and basically, the team and the direction helped smooth over some of Seagal's weaker points, right? He's not the best actor, but he comes across pretty good in this. I think he actually comes across kind of funny, has charisma, he's likable, the action's done well. So I think this is probably the best Seagal's ever been in a movie from recent thought, And I think as he progressed, even the director mentions this in features, when he did his first film, Seagal was new. So he didn't have kind of like as big an ego or anything like that. But now in Under Siege, he's already kind of made a name for himself. He's popular. So he does have this ego. He has this entourage. So he's going to have more pull. And as his career went on, it seems that Seagal had more creative control over his characters. And you hear wild, ridiculous stories throughout. Who is it? I can't think of the actor. Tells the hilarious story in The Glimmer Man in the beginning. That classic character actor. I used to know his name off the top of my head. Stephen Tobolowsky tells that hilarious story about, Seagal just doing some really weird stuff, and they had to edit around it. And it was a freaking mess. And I think that happens more and more later in his career. But as far as early stuff, I think Under Siege really kind of shines. They actually got a real life Navy boat, and they used kind of state-of-the-art kind of special effects, like it was this company called like Intervision that did this stuff. There's an interview with that the special effects guy on there too, so they showed like miniatures and how they blew things up and made it look realistic, and they did really well with that. Because this movie, they said it was a $30 million budget, but it looks like a huge freaking movie. Warner Brothers here. The boat stuff is great on the outside and on the inside, but it's essentially just a Die Hard style story. And again, Andrew Davis in the commentary, a highly intelligent guy here, mentions that he was like, so they're talking about him and the writer talking about the Die Hard kind of story here, and this is what made Die Hard so good was that you had the bad guys, you had the focus on the bad guys, and you had the interesting bad guys, and then you had, of course, the good guys kind of going through the thing. So you have to have these interesting bad guys, and I 100% think that's why Under Siege works, but that's why Die Hard works too. I had it on, was watching a little bit on Christmas Eve last night, and so but my cousin put it on, and so everybody's kind of paying attention to Die Hard, and the bad guys are super memorable in that, from Al Leone to Vigo the Carpathian to all sorts of people, and Alan Rickman as the bad guys in Die Hard, and they all have their moments and everything like that. And Under Siege is the same, and they even mention in the special features that Tommy Lee Jones has more screen time than Steven Seagal by a couple minutes. So what happens is there is an admiral, that's always a hard word for me to say, his birthday. Or captain. Maybe he's just a captain of this boat. He, that's the highest of it. It's like a general, but he's a captain, I believe, and it's his birthday. It's Patrice O'Neal. I want to say he's in Silent Night, Bloody Night. I forgot to look that up. It looks so familiar. I mean, I've seen him before. He's a character actor, bigger kind of actor, older guy, but so it's his birthday, so they're going to throw a special kind of, event for him. So they're flying in all these kind of, band and a Playmate of the Year, which is a great kind of thing having in there. And, of course, Gary Busey is the guy kind of under him. And it's a whole big setup. Busey's in on it as a great villain, and Tommy Lee Jones is this kind of rogue government agent that does these really kind of crazy kind of missions and everything like that. And they're going to take over the boat. They're going to steal the nuclear warheads, and they're going to sell them to the highest bidder. And it's up to Steven Seagal, who's been kind of knocked down all the way to a cook, to kind of stop them. And it's the whole funny thing is Casey Ryback is his most memorable character. He's played it again in Under Siege 2 Dark Territory, which is fun. Hopefully it gets another release. Gets a blue 4K release from Arrow or somebody. But Casey Ryback was this badass kind of special ops kind of guy, and he got downgraded to a cook. So there's a lot of kind of funny stuff with that in here, and kind of jokes with the cook stuff. But it's him to survive along with the Playmate of the Year, going through all the bad guys, and you run into all these different character actors in here that end up helping him, including the guy from Blood In, Blood Out, the lead in that. Raymond Cruz is in here, just another kind of memorable character actor. I can't think of the guy from Halloween 4 and Near Dark is one of them. He's just always plays a cop kind of character. But no, the action's fun. It's the right amount of kind of violence. The bad guys have their their great moments. Tommy Lee Jones is completely unhinged and hilarious. See, Tommy Lee Jones, to me, in a lot of movies he always plays that straight serious guy like The Fugitive or Men in Black. But I think that he's at his best, and he always is this kind of contained insanity. And when he flips, he's perfect at it because he's so just so straight and dead on and serious. But when he gets to go completely mad, like in something like Natural Born Killers or Under Siege for a few moments, he's absolutely brilliant in those kind of moments. And I think he's great in this too. And I think he's absolutely hilarious dressed as that kind of blues kind of singer throughout the movie. This is kind of, I think, before people considered Busey actually completely unhinged, And he's like such a good actor early in his career, like Big Wednesday and Lovely Madonna. And there's a couple other movies where he's just really strong actor. Really, the Straight Time, and he's great, and he's good in this too. But he's a little bit wacky and crazy in this, which was just perfect for his character, where he dresses in drag and dances around, which was kind of fun. Just imagine Busey doing that kind of stuff. And from the special features, he's actually chose to do that, which makes for the whole thing to be even more fun of a story. It looks great and sounds great. We have Dolby Atmos, which was nice. It's a big movie with a lot of explosions, and it seems like a huge budget, to be honest. And it really does, that one location. There's so many movies nowadays made in one location. Like, it's a house or something to save on money. And this one's like, our location is actually like a legit battleship, and we made the fake battleship. Or something like Deep Blue Sea is like, it's a giant under, above the water on the ocean, like, base. So it's like the one locations or something like that are always fun. Then again, they make a lot of sets for that stuff, so it's a little bit different. But as far as Brad brand new 4K restoration of the film, approved by director Andrew Davis. 4K, of course, presented in Dolby Vision, original lossless stereo audio, brand new Dolby Atmos mix, optional English subtitles for deaf and hard of hearing, brand new audio commentary with director Andrew Davis and writer J.F. Lawton. They do talk a little bit about Seagal. I'm on a boat with a bomb, a newly filmed interview with director Andrew Davis. Good interview. He's pretty candid. Seems like a no kind of bullshit guy, but also a jovial, friendly guy, if that makes any sense. One of the guys, a newly filmed interview with actress Erica Leineck from Baywatch and tons of other films. She's good. She's pretty candid on her story. It seems like she had a relatively good time. Has pretty much nothing but nice things to say about most of the people involved. Says she didn't really get any interaction with Seagal. Not much. He had his entourage with him. A tight ship, a newly filmed interview with actor Damien Chapa. And I like him. I remembered him from Blood In, Blood Out, and this is kind of his first film that was released. Tells some fun stories, hanging out with the guys. And he has nothing nice. He has a lot of nice things to say about everybody involved, including Seagal. The Introvision, not Intervision, that's the Severin label thing, sub-label. Introvision files a newly filmed interview with visual special effects artist William Mesa. And he talks about how it was done, how he was picked for the project, all that kind of stuff. And then we have Reversible Sleeve and Collector's Booklet featuring new writing on the film by Verne and serial fiction by Martine Pedler. So yeah, a nice release of a very fun action movie. I'm big into the kind of 80s and 90s action movies. I grew up with a lot of them. And I know Seagal is not my favorite, but this time I would vouch for the Seagal movies, from the early movies all the way probably up until where we start getting into stuff like, Glimmer Man and Exit Wounds. And then I'm like, I'm out. I think I've had enough Seagal for my lifetime. But that early stuff was a lot of fun, and had good bad guys in it and stuff like that, and good cast. And the budgets were there, and the directors were there, and all that kind of stuff like that. And for some reason, they kept Seagal in check. The ego wasn't too big yet, I guess. Or they just knew how to use him, knew how to film him. But he's actually kind of charming in this movie, believe it or not. And he actually gets hurt, which is a rarity for Seagal. There's a couple times when he actually gets messed up. And he does seem to know what he's doing in terms of martial arts in the film. But Tommy Lee Jones steals a lot of the show, does Gary Busey, and just overall, just the fun action of it all. It's a Die Hard riff, but Die Hard's a great movie, and we can riff it some more and have some more fun movies. This time had so many Die Hard riffs. It's Die Hard on a boat. How many times have you heard that? And that's what this is. Or it's Die Hard on a train, or Die Hard on this. But yeah, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It looks great too. Okay, we have one here from 88 Films, and this is a 1988 film, I believe, and this is On the Run. This is directed by Alfred Cheung, who did Paper Marriage, which is a fun comedy that I covered last week with Sammo Hung. Just a blast kind of movie. And this is the complete opposite of fun. It is fun for me because I'm a demented monster, but this is a super entertaining, great, dark, bleak, film noir kind of crime film. I thought this was amazing. Yoon Biao stars in it in a kind of a different role. Yoon Biao to me is always kind of, his films have a little fun to them, a little fantasy quality, or action kind of stunts and kung fu and stuff like that. And that's not this movie. This is a dark, gritty crime film. It has other actors in there that I think a lot of people would recognize. The lead kind of baddie in this is a guy who's like from a romantic comedy, so you never really register him playing this kind of role. And he's very serious in this movie, and he keeps a straight face until the very end, which is a brilliant moment. But the bad guys stand out in this movie, and I'm a big sucker for bad guys. Some of my favorite all-time kind of movies are like stuff like RoboCop, because there's that focus on the bad guys. So just talk about Under Siege, how they mentioned you have to focus on the bad guys. Bad guys are great in it. Die Hard, bad guys are great in it. You got to have the bad guys be equal to the heroes, or vice versa, just to make it more fun. And the bad guys in this one are wonderful. So the commentaries were really interesting in this, because everybody knows that Hong Kong went back to China in 1997. So many of the movies have these kind of elements within them. If you listen to the commentary on stuff like The Island from 1985, Frank Jin talks about that there's this kind of underlining kind of moments within that movie. He doesn't talk about necessarily that, but he talks about these islands where these characters are from have been sold away and stuff, and most people have left these islands, so it's just like these lingering weird people. So there's these elements that are political or just in historical nature and context within these movies that actually make a huge difference here. So in this movie, everybody feels like they're kind of trapped in Hong Kong in 88, and the deal has already been done, so they have till 97 to get out of there to immigrate to Australia, to Canada, to America, to get the fuck out of this place, because it all seems very hopeless here. Yoon Biao has an estranged wife. They're both police officers. Yoon Biao works in this kind of this group, this kind of small little group, the special forces, special team or something like that. It's going to be disbanded fairly often, so they're not taken very seriously. They're kind of lowly. His wife works higher in the homicide or maybe the drug department. She works in the drug department. She's a pretty respected officer, and she's looking to migrate to the United States. She also is having an affair with kind of another guy who's in the homicide kind of group and everything like that. And they used to be friends, so they all have this kind of relationship. This movie's shot beautifully. It's got this dark look to it. And within the first like 10 minutes, my jaw was on the ground how stylized this was. And then looking at the director, and I'm like, he just did Paper Marriage, which is the complete polar opposite of On the Run. And I was like, that's a very versatile director. And I've noticed that a lot about the Hong Kong directors is they seem to be incredibly versatile to, like somebody like Choi Hark, who I'm going to talk about this week as well. We'll do something like Zoo Warriors, and then he'll do Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind. And these movies could be nothing. They're complete opposite films, like in tone and style and genre. And it seems kind of really cool that these directors get to do different things and are very good at different things. So I'm watching this and this opening scene, and I kind of have to spoil it because it's a direct plot thing. So if you don't want to hear that, just go see the movie. It's fantastic. But so in the very beginning of the film, we have this assassin kind of walk in and is going to kill Yun Biao's estranged wife, and it's just beautiful moment where we have like she's walking in and we see like the outside rain, these neon lights, and she's in the restaurant and you see the flame coming from the pans in the back and this shot right in her forehead, and she goes down, and I was like, that was just such a artistically well done shot, edited perfectly, the great amount of atmosphere, and I was like, this is a winner right away. So this puts Yun Biao, he's trying to find out who the killer is, and he realizes, he puts some 2 to 2 together before the homicide detectives do. And before long, he realizes that he catches this assassin, but the homicide detectives are also after the assassin for a completely different reason. They end up being corrupt, and includes the guy that his estranged wife was having this affair with is the leader of the group. And there's about 5 of them, including him, and they're all very memorable, including Philip. I can't think of this actor's name, but he's in like 200 Hong Kong movies. I know him from Seating of a Ghost. He plays the cab driver, the main character, and he's also in Boxer's Omen, where he plays the main character. So he's in those 2 big 1983 Hong Kong horror films, and he plays one of the main bad detectives in this. And Lo Lei, classic actor from the Black Magic movies, and Ghost Galore, a million movies. Fantastic actor, Human Lanterns. He is also one of the bad guys, and he's got these sunglasses on here. And there's like 2 other ones of memorable character actors. And these guys are ruthless and aggressive, and the more the film progresses, the more people they kill that are close to Yun Biao with and complete, it's like kill them with extreme prejudice without caring at all, and they're all doing this for this chance to get out of Hong Kong, and everybody is, and the whole thing kind of blows over, and the assassin, of course, this kind of situation makes strange bedfellows, which a lot of film noirs or these kind of crime films will do, or French films are really good about doing this, where you explain that these characters are interstrange and helping each other. And you're like, well, why would they do this? Because it's very complicated. And this one's 100% like that, where we have this guy being helped, teamed up with the assassin who killed his ex-wife, or his estranged wife, to estranged, kind of the weird word, but they were still married, but they were separated. But to help him try to fight back at these cops who are trying to kill them both at this point. Now, that's all he has. But there's some really dark moments in here, and the ending just kind of goes into like a fever moment where all the characters, the villains, are just cackling and laughing when they realize, they finally got what they're looking for. But at the same time, they went so far to get it. There's some great lines in here, and the action's amazing. People getting shot in the head a lot. Biao gets messed up all the time. And really, the person who does all the action set pieces is the female lead. She's fantastic in here. She's great in here. This is probably relatively close in the same time that we were seeing stuff like Black Cat come out in Hong Kong, where the La Femme Nikita kind of lifts and stuff. So it's not quite there yet, but you do have like Yes Madam and stuff, and so you do have a lot of female-led kind of action, kind of Hong Kong movies coming out that are really good. And On the Run is a fantastic fucking movie. I love this movie. I was touched by this movie. I was shocked that it went to the places it did. Just knocked my socks off. Fantastic release here. Stunning new 2K transfer. Gorgeous film. Presented in Cantonese. You can also do English subtitles. Then we have 2 commentaries. Audio commentary with Ken and Borson and Paul Gillian of the podcast on the Fire Network, and audio commentary with Asian cinema experts Frank Jin and FJ DeSanto. And I love Frank Jin. He's become one of my favorite kind of commentators when it comes to this stuff. Excellent. Tons of information. Running, and always context too. You gotta have context with a lot of these movies, and it helps. Running away with interview with Alfred Cheung. Predicting the Future interview with David West, alternative ending, Hong Kong trailer, reversible sleeve with original Hong Kong poster art, and new art by Sean Longmore. The only hit on this movie is that the ending, you could tell it was done for a certain reason, probably to appease, Hong Kong censors. They do mention in the special features and stuff, this one probably won't be around Hong Kong too much because it kind of resonates with, society in Hong Kong at the time, with the China takeover and stuff like that. And it's hard for me to make comments on that stuff because I don't live in Hong Kong, and I'm just bringing up reference points from people's commentaries and things of that nature. So, but, you can kind of grasp some of the emotions that some of the people have, or at least that some of the people would have, in that kind of aspect. But excellent release from 88 Films on the run. Okay, so I decided to pop in a Shaw movie that I hadn't seen that Vinegar Syndrome put out from the VSA line, and this is from one of the best, Hong Kong directors that I like, Lam Nai-Choi, who, this is Men from Gutter, 1983. This is his second film, and Lam Nai-Choi, like many Hong Kong directors, got to start at Shaw Brothers. His first 3 films were Shaw Brothers. This is his second one, and then he would move to Golden Harvest, like a lot of the guys did, and end up making stuff like Story of Ricky and The Cat and Seventh Curse, kind of bigger, I guess, movies that people know, but Men from Gutter. So this is kind of a rarity. There's not that many. Like, I haven't seen as many contemporary crime films or action films that they do make them in Shaw Brothers, but they didn't have as many. They had a lot of the period piece stuff. But if you compare like Murderers, Pursuers, or Mob Flicks, Patrol, those are fun movies. This is and dark too, but this one is super dark and bleak. So it kind of follows Jason Pai Pao, I think that's the actor's name, but I know him from a lot of his Shaw Brothers kind of wuxia or fantasy movies. He's in Portrait in Crystal as the main guy. Really good actor, really good at the martial arts stuff. Seemingly, and he is this guy who's out for revenge, and he's after this kind of crime boss and a couple of these other guys who are part of it, and he wants them dead, and he shows up, and that's his kind of number one mission. He's going to do anything it takes to get there. He's a hyper-focused. And we have 2 other storylines here. We have a storyline of 3 recently released low-level kind of criminals that are looking to rob an armored car. All 3 of them are kind of character actors that you've seen in this stuff. The skinny guy, the tiny little skinny guy who pops up in stuff like Mob Flicks, Patrol, Murders, Pursuers, he's in there as one of the guys. I can't think of his name, but you'd recognize him almost immediately. He's in Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind. And we also have this guy, the one who's kind of like the darker skinned guy that looks like he may be from, not originate from Hong Kong. He's in a bunch of movies as well. So it's like these 3 guys going to get an armored truck along with one of their girlfriends. And then we have the police kind of story that ties a lot of it together. These 2 cops, one of which who's more of a rogue cop is one of the 5 Deadly Venoms, Toad. So like we have all these great kind of actors and everything, and this dark, gritty look to it and everything, a revenge story. And not all the stories kind of cross paths, but they do kind of intermingle, and of course the cops are the carryover for all the stories here. So Jason is looking to kill these guys, and he has these encounters and everything like that. Well, these guys gonna rob this armored car, and you don't know exactly where everything is going to go, but the movie's called Men from the Gutter, so you're talking about desperate men in kind of this desperate time in Hong Kong, and it doesn't end very well for most of the characters in the film. It's got a great look to it. It's got a different kind of score to it. It has like a synth kind of score, very kind of gritty, kind of weird, bizarre 80s score to it, which I dig. A lot of people might not dig it, but I'm totally into it. Totally love it. Some of the action set pieces are amazing, like when Jason Pau's kind of running in the apartment and he's trying to get away from the bad guys, and he's like kicking, sets one dude on fire and throws one dude out the window. It's just like kind of crazy shit like that that's just absolutely amazing. And, the whole armored car patrol, scene is fantastic as well. So, like, you see one movie where, like, the whole lead would end up to an armored kind of, like, robbery or something like that, but this is just one part of it. This is one of the climaxes of the film. There's, like, 2 climaxes in here, and it's one of them. And the ending of the film is kind of like a precursor to Hard Boiled, where we have that big warehouse shootout. It's not quite as good as Hard Boiled, but those Hong Kong movies, or the Hong Kong directors, are always like, we're going to end this in a big warehouse. Like Hard Target, even another John movie made in America, but he'll be like, we're going to end this in a warehouse. Why? Because crazy shit's going to happen. We need to have these ideas of high-flying stunts flying down and all that kind of stuff like that. And this whole big kind of set piece happens where we have the cops, we have the assassin who's getting his revenge, and we have the main kind of crime boss and everything like that. And the crime boss is an absolute sleazy piece of crap. His goons are good, but I mean they're entertaining with the movie, but he's just an absolute piece of shit. You're wishing for him to die throughout the entire movie, kind of like Flaming Brothers, the bad guy in that movie. You're like, if this motherfucker doesn't die, I'm gonna be very upset. But that's kind of the element here, and like everything falls apart in here. It's just great. A lot of jumping from building to rooftop to rooftop. Loved Men from Gutter. I mean, I don't want to downplay this. I thought it was great. It's not quite as good as On the Run though. On the Run knocked my socks off, but I thought Men from Gutter was fantastic. fantastic. So watching a lot of these Hong Kong movies, I'm really enjoying it. Now, I did watch it for 83. It's not going to be counted as a horror watch towards 83, but I watched it. I wanted to see the Lam Nai-Choi movie. I'm probably saying his name wrong, for 83, because he's such a, I'd say he's such a good cult director, and I love his movies, and he made a bunch in the 80s. So, this is kind of one of his early films, his second one here. But as far as the features concerned, we have presented in the Cantonese mono soundtrack with newly translated subtitles, newly 2K from the 35mm camera angles and destroyed by Vinegar Syndrome. Brand new commentary by track with film historian and author Sam Deegan. Good one from Gutter to the Theater. A brand new making of documentary featuring interviews with Tony Liu, Hung Hua, actor Jason Pa Pai, and actor Yun Bun, not Yun Biao, sorry. Jason Pai Pao, Hong Kong cinema chameleon actor, chameleon tough guy. A video essay by film historian Eric Schultz. He is too, to be honest. And they go over his career, because he is so different from this in Portrait in Crystal the same year, which is brilliant. But I would highly recommend checking this one out. If you're into these kind of movies, if you're into the action, dark, gritty, crime films from Hong Kong, then this one's good. And it's a precursor to that kind of good heroic bloodshed stuff I think you guys would enjoy by John Woo. But I loved it. I thought it was great stuff, Men from the Gutter. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple 2025 movies. It's going to be relatively quick. This one came out in 2023, but wide release 2025. It's on Amazon Prime, and it is Cannibal Mukbang. And this one was recommended to me by Moods because I saw the title, and he was like, listen, the title is not great, and I think it's holding the movie back. And he mentioned that, and I was like, okay, so I watched it, and I really enjoyed this one here. So it's it's a low-budget movie, but it opens up, and it definitely, they used within their means. It doesn't come across cheap or crappy or anything of that nature. When it comes on, I was like, oh wow, they did a fairly well job, keeping within their budget, making it look professional. And it's kind of just basically a three-hander, three actors, two main actors in here. We have a guy who's kind of a lonely guy, doesn't seem to get along very much with very many people. He has a plate in his head, he's been injured, and he ends up kind of getting hit by this girl in a parking lot after they have this kind of small talk in this store, and he becomes infatuated with her, and she actually ends up becoming infatuated with him as well. And they have this kind of one-off meet cute kind of date thing, and the relationships blossoms. And what she does for a living is she mukbangs online. She eats a lot of these kind of things like that. And the first day they meet, she feeds him, or the second time they meet, she feeds him, and he kind of gets sick pretty quick. The relationship starts to get pretty serious, and this guy has a brother. They've had a tragic life. Their parents died very young, and he has a brother that's just a real kind of asshole kind of character that you've seen before, kind of like a bro, like, did you get laid? Oh, that kind of guy, and everything like that. And the more he learns about this woman, the more he gets into the relationship, and the more he becomes tied into it. And they call it Cannibal Mukbang for a reason. Of course, she has a dark secret, and what she's eating is not necessarily kosher. Let's just put it that way. But the love story is solid. I believed it. I bought it. I liked the characters. I wanted it to work out well. But if you're dealing with these kind of characters in these kind of situations, it can't. If you've ever seen any of these kind of horror movie love story deals, it's got to end in tragedy, or is it even, but it doesn't always necessarily have to end in tragedy, but you're kind of looking that it's going to. I believe this movie, they make reference to Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania and stuff like that, so I think it was shot in Pittsburgh. No, I don't really see a lot of the landscapes that I would recognize. Probably, maybe I'm not paying enough attention. It's not like taking part of like the scenic kind of rural areas, but it definitely takes place there. And this person made this, you could tell, definitely loves their horror films, definitely inspired by like Romero and things of that nature. But overall, I really enjoyed this. Although you kind of see part of the ending coming, that twist. I wouldn't even call it a twist. It's kind of just how the story's going to unfold. But overall, Cannibal Mukbang was very entertaining, very well done. Would recommend it. It's on Prime. You got nothing to lose. It's a good one for 2025. And I've noticed that a lot of the kind of mid-tier, low-budget movies have actually been fairly strong for me this year over some of the ones that went through theaters that don't. They seemingly seem disingenuine, and Cannibal Mukbang seems really genuine and really, out there, heartfelt. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good stuff. And, I always don't watch all the new low-budget stuff. I don't know the budget on this one, but I thought they did a pretty good job with this one, and I didn't think that the budget or anything held it back too much. So good stuff. Okay, this next one here is Strange Harvest. And I'd heard a bit about this one. I didn't know if it was, going to be up my kind of alley. It did hit theaters briefly, but I missed out on it. But this is a fake kind of, faux kind of documentary kind of style thing about a serial killer. and that's totally up my jam. It's something in the lines with a Koji Shirayashi movie, which I love his films. Japanese director, did a record for Sweet Murder, Noroi the Curse, Occult, and that kind of style. Or even something along the lines of, Murder, Death, Korean Town, which I thought was a pretty interesting movie, kind of haunting film. And I really dig these here. So it opens up and we have these kind of interviews with these detectives and other people, surviving victims, all these kind of people like that and whatnot. And it opens up and we have this really grueling, nasty murder where these people have been drained of blood sitting around a dinner table and there's a symbol on the ceiling. And they're talking about it and it's more modern times. And then they're like, well, we thought this case was over. And we go all the way back to 1995. We go back like 3 decades and they start talking about the original cases and how they got tied together and all this stuff like that and how close they were to possibly catching this guy and all these things like that. And you get intrigued, you get sucked in by the halfway mark, and then it starts getting real weird. We start bringing like astronomical, like astrology areas here and different kind of mythologies and these weird kind of gods and all this kind of worshiping stuff like that, where this kind of serial killer that they're following could be into. And he's kind of part like Zodiac, but he also reminds me very much of someone who is looking for this kind of resurrection cause. And I thought that was really interesting and really creepy. And they film these kind of real weird kind of, they make it genuinely scary and creepy. They do use CGI in some of the shots and stuff with like the aftermath, but I was so invested with it. I didn't think it looked too bad. I was totally invested. And by then I was enjoying the ride, and I thought it was a really well done story. I thought it really unfolded well. I thought it was genuinely creepy, vastly entertaining, and I really do like the 2 main detectives that are in the story. I think that they have the right moments of delivery, and I think that they come across pretty genuine as detectives, although you can tell it's a little bit of a movie, but for the most part I think they did a really good job. I think this is one of the best put together horror films of the year. Like I said, as I get older, I kind of, if we're going to do kind of a thriller kind of horror film or make it kind of like a fake documentary style thing, I need a mystery to it, and that's why I think Noroi works so well for me, the Noroi the Curse, because you're looking through a mystery. You're figuring this mystery unfolds, and each time you move further, another page or a layer of the onion gets peeled back, and you're like, this is really getting weird, this is really getting bizarre, but by then I'm so intrigued. And this is the closest movie I think I've seen, especially an American film, to Noroi. And I mean that as an utmost compliment. I think that this is a smart, intelligent, creepy movie that the further you get in, the further you're invested in it. And I mean that as an utmost compliment. I would highly recommend checking out Strange Harvest. It's available to rent and everything of that nature. But good one, and definitely a contender for my top 10. I've seen a lot of movies that people have been praising this year, and they really don't work for me. It's just not something I'm interested in. Maybe it's just I'm cut from a different cloth. We all are not cut from the same cloth, but I thought this was a fantastic, weird, creepy movie, and I would recommend it. Good stuff, too. Now I'm just going to be very brief with this one because it's an incredibly popular movie and it's new, and I did not read the book. I do not know much about it, but it was kind of a whim to go see a movie, and it is Housemaid, about 2 hours and 15-minute movie. It's by Paul Feig, who's mostly known for like comedic films or comedy directing stuff. So, he's tackling kind of a thriller-based, like erotic kind of thriller book with like twisty-turny kind of thing here. So I was like, okay, Sydney Sweeney, I know her from Immaculate. I know she had some controversy recently. I did not pay much attention to that, as it does not concern me about what people. I just don't care. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I don't give a shit. But I just know her from the lady from Immaculate, and I thought that movie was pretty solid. But we also have Amanda Seyfried, and I think those are the biggest names. We also, it's kind of like 4 actors in this entire movie, 5. But there's kind of a 3-hander here. So Sydney Sweeney is this kind of down on her luck ex-con who's looking for a job desperately. She just lost a job, and so she applies for this kind of a housemaid kind of job in this really, really nice house. She doesn't think she's going to get it. She ends up getting it, and almost immediately the wife is horrible. She's just insane, clearly mentally ill, just going off, not remembering things properly, blaming her for things, doing these manipulative things. But the husband is this hunky, super sweet, nice guy, and she's obviously incredibly interested in him. There's a housekeeper around as well, who's kind of this red herring slight character, completely wasted character, completely terrible performance. Doesn't have anything to do. I don't know if he's more of a prevalent part in the book, but a completely garbage wasted character. Now, overall, this isn't for me. It feels like it plays as a comedy, and I don't know if it's trying to be campy and silly and funny. Maybe it's supposed to be a little bit fun for the audience, but it doesn't work at all as a thriller for me because nothing's really thrilling, and it doesn't work as a comedy for me because nothing's really funny. there is some absurdity towards the end that I did enjoy, and I think that some of the revenge bits are pretty much they are kind of cathartic, but it happens way too late. So this is essentially what should be an 80-minute Lifetime movie stretched into a 2-hour and 15-minute movie. It's 100% that. They do add in some nudity and some sexy time, so it's like basically like a Lifetime movie with some tits and some sex and some I'm gonna sound like a prick here. I sound like an elitist asshole, but to me it really felt like a movie that is just, they didn't want to put that much money or effort into it because it was based on a book, and they knew they'd get their money back almost immediately just because the book's so popular. Like kind of like the first Twilight, where they're like, oh, make this a lot cheaper than we expect. We don't know if we're gonna make money from it, but we'll make enough if we don't make it that expensive. And they kind of, and them, I don't like any of the Twilight movies, but they're not made for me. I'm not the audience, and this one is not the audience for me either. It's made for a lot of people that don't watch 10,000 movies a year, that don't watch weird films or strange films. This is very cookie cutter by the number crap. Now the twist at the end and stuff, I guess it's somewhat of a twist, but there's going to be somewhat of a twist here and there, and a part of it's fun. And if this movie was 70 minutes, it would be a fucking blast. But it is literally 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it drags on, and it over explains absolutely everything. I can't think of any great camera moves. I can't think of any great camera lighting. I can't think of anything that the movie really does unique that makes it stand out. Except maybe somebody would be enjoyed by the sex scene. I don't think Sydney Sweeney's great in it. I don't think she's horrible in it, but I think she's definitely not worthy of carrying this movie at all. I think the lead male performance is good. I think he comes across really strong. I think he's genuinely a good actor. I think Amanda Seyfried has her moments in here too. There's some fun moments in the film. But overall, this was tedious. This was boring. A lot of people are saying, it's fun and silly and stupid. I was bored to tears by the last act, to the point where most of the audience was kind of just like talking to the screen in like annoyance, or they might have had fun with it. But when I think fun, I don't think 2 hours and 15 minutes fun. If I'm having fun, I want it to be short and sweet and get in and get out. And there's got to be maybe an element of camp or something that I'm completely missing out here. But I'm just shocked. I was looking at some of the ratings that people would rate something that I think is like a 3 or a pretty solid movie. They're like, that's crap. That's me. And then they're rating this like, this is good. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? This is a shitty movie. This is a really bad movie, guys. And maybe you're enjoying the irony that it's bad, but I don't like that. I'm not that kind of person. I don't enjoy the irony. Like, I may like some shitty movies. I know they're shitty movies, and I can tell you why they're shitty movies, but I'll be genuine why I like them. Like, yes, I do enjoy Garbage Pail Kids because I grew up with it, and it's weird and gross. Or Master Universe or something, because it has just certain elements that I do understand are bad, but there's certain things in the film that I do like that I will forgive. This one just bores me to tears, man. There's nothing worse you can do here. If you're going to have me sit there for 2 hours and 15 minutes, yes, it's a cool looking house that most of the movie's shot in, but who gives a fuck? Who gives? It's a fucking house. None of the camera work is that memorable. I just don't. This guy's mostly known for directing comedies, and this is directed like a comedy without any jokes. I don't know. It's not for me. It's one of the worst movies I've seen in theaters. Probably the worst one. I didn't care for Until Death. I didn't care for Death of a Unicorn. I didn't care for 28 Years Later. But 28 Years Later, they're much better than this movie. This is much better than actually all those movies I just named. It's just, at least it tried something in certain aspects. I just don't like what they tried. But I can grasp to a certain extent why some people like it. The other ones, they're whatever. They're mediocre. They have their moments. This one is probably the worst movie I saw in theaters. It's not for me. It's kind of just for like, those movies you used to see at the video store, like 13, 13, 13, where they have a bunch of shirtless teenage like guys and like 15-year-old girls and their moms will rent them together and watch them. That's kind of the vibe I get on this one. I do like the element of her, like at a certain point, the revenge element in here. I dig that. That's about it. And I do think that the ending, there's some fun kind of cathartic moments of revenge. And like I said, the male guy's good. Siegfried has her moments. I think Sydney Sweeney's fine. I just don't think she's not really fit to carry this movie. And at the very ending, there's just like some hilarious cheap like crap that people did not think through. Like where you're like, what? I feel like this has to be campy, and it just doesn't. It's not my camp. I'm not in this camp. I like certain campy stuff, but like when movies used to not be aware of how fucking stupid they were a lot better. Now everything's like, yeah, this is stupid, isn't it? It's like, fuck off. Just fuck off. But I did not care for Housemaid. I wouldn't even know if I was going to review it because it just feels very counterproductive. But no, not for me at all. Maybe if I read the book, I'd appreciate it, but I could tell it was a book by watching the movie. And there's a couple scenes of narration that seem like they're just shoehorned in. But it is what it is. Let's get into those 1983 movies.
I have returned.
Okay. Show me.
Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
Like
What's what like?
screwing a psycho.
What the fuck was that?
It's gone.
God blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime. Loved by many women. He might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel?
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Get the video, Joe! Long live the new flesh!
No choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead.
What are you doing?
And the first one up is Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain. This is a Shout Factory, Scream Factory release. This is directed by Choi Hark, 1983, of course. This is definitely more of a fantasy, less horror film here. Yoon Biao stars in it. Sammo Hung is in here, so we got some great names. Love Yoon Biao. Just was in On the Run. Love Sammo Hung, of course. This is directed by Choi Hark, who directed Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind, Once Upon a Time in China, We're Going to Eat You. So really strong director here. And this is based off, I think, a series of books from 1932, like these fantasy-style kind of books here, which I've actually not read, but yeah, he kind of took a lot of these different things and elements of that nature. So like I said, this is kind of an odd film for him early in his career and stuff. He had done the kind of exploitation and horror kind of stuff and maybe some other movies by then, but this one is a wild one. So I mean, like the wuxia movies of, like the 60s, they had a lot of them, and even in the early 80s, if you compare it to like the 83 Shaw Brothers output, we have Portrait in Crystal and The Enchantress, and there's a couple other ones too that are pretty wild, but they're definitely moving away. Hong Kong cinema was kind of moving away more into the new wave and stuff of that nature, and more like crime films and gritty films, and Wong Kar-wai was going to start doing movies, or had been doing movies at this point. So it's definitely not really, maybe he hadn't done his movies yet, but it's definitely kind of shifting away from this stuff. And in the special features, they do mention that he took some slack for this because they always considered Hong Kong special effects essentially, the stunts and all the wild kind of stuff like that. The special effects weren't really there. And this one has special effects that are more in line with Star Wars because there's guys from Star Wars working on it. But to me, they look more in line with something like A School in the Crosshairs, the Obayashi Japanese film at the end, that kind of conflict, those kind of special effects like that. But this is a huge, big fantasy movie, and there's definitely, I guess you could say, some, context, political kind of mention of here, because Sammo Hung and Yuen Bian in the very beginning are these two like kind of different groups of soldiers. One wears red, one wears blue, and they end up kind of coming in contact with each other after Yuen Bian as they get separated from their groups, and they're like, well, why don't we not fight, yada yada. They become kind of like these weird fast friends, and they get stuck in the middle of an even bigger battle where like these three different armies come in, one orange, one green, and one like yellow or something, and so like they're all fighting, and these two are like, hey, let's fake fight and get out of here. And it's just really brilliant kind of moment here where they're all doing these fake fighting and stuff like that. But anyways, Yuen Bian gets knocked down this mountain, and he's kind of wandering through this, and he comes across this giant kind of like hero who's really arrogant, but he's really good at what he does, and he ends up saving him in this cave from these like kind of wild, weird monster kind of like creatures, and he's like, I want to follow you on to be your, I want you to teach me, but he won't take them on, and they kind of run into these two kind of monks, and we kind of learn that this whole film's going to be about passing that torch on to that next younger generation where the masters are no longer going to be the masters and whatnot. Sammo Hung comes in and plays a different kind of character where he's like this long brow kind of mustache guy who controls his facial hair, and he's holding this blood demon back before this blood demon, if it gets out of control, will take over the entire world. So that's kind of there's a race of time that these group of heroes have to find these two magic swords, which the two magic swords are very common in Shaw Brothers and other kind of Hong Kong films and fantasy films where you'll have these magic kind of elements and swords of that nature. So they're trying to find these two magic swords so they can stop this blood demon in time. So that's kind of the element here where they all have to team up, and people are getting poisoned, and they're stopping on these side quests. It's very fantastical, very group kind of thing going on here, and it's based, like I said, on these 30s books, but at the time in the early 80s we had a lot of fantasy and even medieval stuff going on with Conan the Barbarian and all that kind of stuff like that. It was very popular at the time, and it's showing in here. This one is a lot of fun. Yuen Biao's great as the lead. He's always entertaining. But I enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed this as quite as much as a lot of other people did. I think when we're looking at a lot of the other ones, a lot of people say the Shaw Brothers stuff is a little bit dated for the time, and I can see that, but I really enjoy Portrait in Crystal of the time, and I like this one. It's good, and there's tons of special effects and wildness and cool monsters and great designs, and I do think it translates pretty much to like a Western audience because a lot of this stuff was incredibly popular at the time. It looks pretty dark and gritty too in comparison to a lot of the other fantasy movies, but there's a lot of cool special effects and bright kind of vibrant shit going on. But as far as the special features, select commentary with Asian cinema expert Tony Raines, interview with director Choi Hark. It's about an hour-long interview with Choi Hark, talks about working in the Hong Kong system and on the TV. Alternate cut Zoo Time Warrior, an export version of the film with additional footage. Interview with actors Yuen Bian, Mang Hoi, and Moon Lee. Overall, I think this is one of these ones that has gained like this huge amount of like a cult status, and I definitely had to watch it for 83, and I'm glad I did. So it's pretty cool stuff. I think that most people will enjoy Zoo Warriors from Magic Mountain. I'm glad to have it in my collection. Okay, the next 1983 movie here is The Demon Murder Case, and this has a really strong cast in it, but I don't want to bury the lead here. This is based on a true story, the same story that The Conjuring, I think 3 or 4 was made, The Devil Made Me Do It, that one, where we had that real kind of life story here. It kind of fits in a lot with the Amityville 2, which is based on a kind of true story kind of deal too, supposed story here with the possession and stuff like that, so it definitely fits in with that. Has a good cast. This is a TV film. It has Kevin Bacon here, Cloris Leachman, Andy Griffith. So it has like a lot of good cast, and Richard Masters in here. So I was like, oh, this is Eddie Albert. So great cast in this little TV movie here. It's definitely a little bit dull. It's definitely a little bit hammy. Definitely a little bit cheesy. So it opens up where we have this court case. Richard Masters is a lawyer, and he's had a good year here with Nightmares. The year before he had The Thing. So Masters always kind of popped up in a lot of things, and he's talking about, I believe my client here, and Kevin Bacon, was possessed when he committed these crimes. I don't believe believe he's going to go away. We have the Cloris Leachman kind of news person and all that kind of stuff like that. And then, of course, we're going to kind of go backwards and we're going to see the original story where his little brother was possessed and he was trying to move in with his girlfriend and he seems like a genuinely sweet guy. And we see the entire murder and everything kind of take place and the possession and all it build up and everything. And then we see the kind of final conflict at the court case. It's kind of like bookend and everything like that. Yeah, this one is just overall, it's okay movie. It's not great. It's dull. I think that Andy Griffith and the woman who's basically the sit-in for the female Warren, Lorraine Warren, I think that Andy Griffith is a perfect Warren. You know, he's a good actor. I like him. He has that kind of genuinely like good-natured attitude about him, and they played the demonologist, right? And they butt heads originally with the priest and everything. These don't seem, I don't know why, maybe it's just the dated kind of element of them. They don't seem quite as like propaganda fueled as some of the other later day, you know, Warren kind of stuff. And I know like the movie The Haunted was one from 81 that also had like kind of the Warren kind of characters come in here. But, you know, I think this is decent. I think it's all right. Kevin Bacon's obviously not Kevin Bacon quite yet. He had done Friday 13th in 80, but he's not like the big actor that he would later become, kind of like the starring kind of guy. He's all right in it. And it's just overall okay. I can't give this like a wholehearted recommend. It's interesting in the fact that it's just based on true story TV movie that was later kind of redone late as well. And then we have the big possession kind of angle in the early 80s due to The Exorcist and of that nature and Amityville Possession. There's so many movies that have this possession angle. And this is definitely kind of one of them, although it is kind of a slightly interesting one in that when it was made and how it was made and what it's based on. That's kind of more important than the actual movie itself, The Devil Murder Case. All right, the Patreon pick this week is The Jerk, directed by Carl Reiner, 1979, starring Steve Martin, Bernadette Peters, some other people in here too. Carl Reiner actually has a role in here as well. So The Jerk I had not watched in, geez, how long had it been since I seen The Jerk? Probably 30 years, 20 years, at least 20 years since I've seen The Jerk, 25 years. I remember really enjoying it when it came out, and a lot of times when you watch these kind of classic comedies, you know, you're worried, you know, basically, is it going to be dated? Is it going to hold up in time? I try to watch it through 1979 eyes, even though I wasn't born in 79. I try to watch it through different set of eyes, because some people be like, humor's not appropriate, yada, 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 but when I watched Blazing Saddles, I still thought it was hilarious. I still thought it worked. The Jerk, I still think is pretty freaking funny. Steve Martin's really great at playing an idiot. In the very beginning of the movie, they have the whole idea right here. I was born a poor black child. So Steve Martin was basically left on the doorstep of this poor black family, kind of down south, and he's like grown up in that aspect. This movie is an absurdist comedy too. Like, yes, it has those elements like that where, like, yes, somewhat grounded, but there's like these moments of complete absurdity which actually crack me up. Like, I think Billy Madison is, you know, one of my favorite examples of complete absurdity, right? Absurd comedy where like there's a certain dumb shit that happens where it's like, why are we going to follow this rule and not that rule, which is the complete opposite of how things work in real life that make me laugh. But Steve Martin decides to go out into the real world, and of course, you know, he's a fish out of water. He doesn't understand certain things that he was taught, and he's learning along the way, and there's a lot of hilarity to be had. So the first job he gets the whole hitchhiker gag in the beginning is brilliant, but it just drives him, I'm just going to the end of this fence. Like, that shit's funny to me. Drops him off. But he ends up getting this job at this gas station. And I never forgot this scene. He's like, I'm somebody now. I just got my name in the phone book. And Emmett Walsh is a hitman. He's this crazy guy. And he's like, I'm going to kill a bastard, a regular bastard. He points out, and he's the first name he points, he's going to kill him in the phone book, which is absolutely brilliant to me. But my favorite gag in the movie is actually just a one-off line here, is when Steve Martin's running away from Emmett Walsh trying to kill him. And he ends up crossing this fence, and the fence has a sign on it that says "Circus Personnel Only." And he gets in something he's not supposed to. And Emmett Walsh has been chasing him down, you know, the California countryside or wherever he is, shooting at him, trying to kill him. And he gets at this gate, and he looks, and it says "Circus Personnel Only." And he decides to follow the rules there, and he sees him in there, and he screams, "He's not circus personnel! He's not circus personnel!" And it just cracked me up. It's just this freaking brilliant moment of just stupidity, like complete absurdist comedy to me that just just cracked me the fuck up. And Emma Walsh is a great character actor. But so you see these like kind of Steve Martin. It has the bookends, right? He's poor on the street telling his story, and then he tells his entire story, right? And we kind of come back, and it's gonna have the classic story, right, where he's gonna he's gonna be saved. It's gonna be a happy ending. And so many comedies have that kind of that story that script structure, right, where it's like, hey, here's my story. I'm miserable right now, and then we're gonna cut to tell his story, and then at the very end he's still miserable, but everybody's gonna come to rescue. Which I've always enjoyed that. I've always liked that kind of that narration or that storytelling structure in a comedy. Steve Martin, I knew him from a few films like Three Amigos and of that nature, and I used to watch a lot of his SNL tapes. He was always one of the best guests on SNL, and he was always absolutely hilarious. But I'm trying to, Little Shop of Horrors. I've probably not seen as much Steve Martin as I would have liked to, and I need to watch his other Carl Reiner movies, like, what's the parody, The Man with Two Brains, and he did the Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, which I really would like to watch. Those are two that I need to watch. Carl Reiner's obviously the son of Rob Reiner, who just unfortunately had died, which is R.I.P. Very sad. And Rob Reiner was a great director himself. But Carl Reiner is a pretty solid director, actor, of course, absolutely hilarious. Comes from that school, along with like Mel Brooks, sort of old friends. So he does have that style of humor, which could be, probably considered inappropriate nowadays to many people. But I think it's pretty freaking funny, especially if you're taking it in the context of the time it came out. Yeah, very fun. Bernadette Peters is fantastic in it, charming and sweet, and I enjoy her. But it has like your absurdist comedy, your fish out of water style, plenty of funny gags, ridiculous gags as well. And Steve Martin is really good at playing an idiot. Bill Murray is also pretty good at playing a moron, and that's a good kind of comedy to have. Overall, I thought The Jerk was great. I just watched it, rented it, watched it on a streaming service. I actually don't have the Scream Factory. I thought I did, but I do not. If I ever see it on sale, I'll pick it up. Maybe there'll be a 4K or something like that. But great movie, great, very much a product of its time, but I still think it works to this day. Yeah, great stuff, The Jerk. All right, let's get these questions, comments, and concerns. Explosive Action, Black Belt and Blood Fist rule, and both discs are finally correct aspect ratio and uncut. That's nice. Guided by Violence, thanks for all the reviews. Happy holidays, thank you. Audio Love, 1976. Mausoleum is the perfect example of 80s cheese and instantly takes me back to being a kid in the 80s, being simultaneously freaked out and intrigued by it. Yeah, that's the best feeling, right? Door Kitty Films, happy holidays, thank you. Way Up Dude, Merry Christmas, Mrparka, thank you. Back at you. Hudson3838, Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. Great, thank you. Back at you. DL Lux, thank you for all the awesome reviews this year. Happy holidays, thank you. Wreck Mirage, thanks for the nice review. What a fun commentary to do. That's Artie Venema, great commentator, of course, expert on Hong Kong films. What the Flick, I've had the uncut version of Murder Set Pieces for years on imported DVD, and it's better than the cut version, but it still sucks. I love Nick Palumbo's Nutbag. It's my favorite bad movie. My buddy and I watch it every now and then for the laughs. There's so many unintentionally funny moments in it. Nick from Flanders, yeah, the Amityville franchise has its highs and plenty of lows. I like the first three and some of the ideas behind the later films, such as Amityville Awakening or the Amityville Murders, but otherwise nothing all that special. I've always wanted to see Mausoleum. It's supposed to be quite good, according to Kim Newman at least. I'm checking out the Black Friday purchases. Man, oh man, are they entertaining. I enjoyed Craze featuring Jack Palance. Thanks for recommending the Cruel Britannia set. I didn't know if I recommended it. I picked it up myself, but I had to have it. I also really dug the In the Grip of Terror from the newly resurrected Amicus Productions. I just can't say no to a good anthology horror movie. This one is especially the One-Way Ward based on H.P. Lovecraft's Cool Air. Cool, very cool. I'll have to pick that up. Which old label or studio would you resurrect? Old label or studio? Let's resurrect Shaw Brothers. That's right. Let's resurrect the Shaw Brothers. Bring back some Hong Kong filmmaking. Any of those ones, man. I would love to see them still making Hong Kong movies. That's what I definitely would do. Do you think Netflix taking over Warner Bros. Will spell the end of physical media, or will there just be less of it? I don't know. It won't spell the end. Nothing will spell the end. But I don't know what's going to happen. What's your favorite Christmas song or ballad? I don't know. The Night Santa Went Crazy by Weird Al's a pretty good one. But, when you go to the classic ones, you heard a couple of them, the classic, really old ones, like even the religious ones. I'm not like the most religious guy, but those classic like religious Christmas songs, they do have a certain ring to them, and they put you in the mood for sure. Just hearing them, you should just grow up with them, right? They're stuck in your brain, and I like a lot of those ones, like Little Drummer Boy or something like I don't even know the names. I'm not going to do it, but you guys get the point. I like a lot of the old ones, and I like, Night Santa Went Crazy. There we go here. First off, R.I.P. Who posted this? I can't think. I must have dipped. Oh, this is also Nick Flanders. First off, R.I.P. James Ransom. Secondly, I hope you had a great Christmas with the rest of the clan. Parka. I sure had mine with mine till 2026, God willing, and plenty of good cheer for the upcoming year. Yeah, James Ranson, I knew him from the It Chapter 2. Good performance in that movie. Unfortunately, passed away. Fire Espresso. This is Ken Coakley. I'm in the hospital. I have pneumonia. My lungs as well as cellulitis in my legs, so I haven't been able to watch anything. I'm sending this letter from an iPad provided by the hospital. I couldn't bring my phone because I was in altered state because of my high fever 104. I'm sorry, Ken. I hope you get better. Speedy recovery. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, man. I'm sorry about that. I hate hearing that. Kentuckinator. Merry Christmas, Mr. Parka. I saw Mausoleum when I was young too. Should have waited till I was at least 40. At least. Should have seen it at 52 years old. That's the appropriate age to watch Mausoleum. Yeah, we're going to do our little Patreon draw here. Got 5 names coming out of the bag. This thing is fat. What do we got? We got Ryan Cannon, The Island, 1985, Hong Kong. I already seen The Island, so we're going to toss that one. I've covered it on the show. Great movie, The Island, 1985, Hong Kong. So we already did that one. Then we got Jim Simon, Mean Streets, 73. It's been a long time since I've seen Mean Streets, of course, the Martin Scorsese movies. So that's one. What do we got here? Jim Carroll, Missing You, 2016. Don't know it. Maybe I do. Don't know. That's 2. We got 3, 4. Aimee D, Dogfight, 1991. Okay. And then we got 4. Sleep, a.k.a. Skaloff, 2020, Nick Mua. Hopefully I can find that one. And then here's the last one. Let's get a classic. I had one, but I dropped it. There we go here. Travis Linscomb, Breaking Away. That's the running film, if I'm not mistaken. Never seen it. I am a runner, though, so maybe I'll quite enjoy it. Now, I could do the whole thing where I do the different camera angle, but I'm just going to go into the 6 movies I got. My final stuff came from Black Friday. We have the HD 4K version here of Hitch-Hike, the Franco Nero David Hess, Colleen Clary movie. Love this movie. Great movie. Exploitation at its finest. 2 of my favorites. I love Franco Nero, but I love David Hess even more. That's the region-free one here for Indicator, and a bunch of features on there. And then we have the Plot of Fear, another Indicator 4K import here. That's right, very cool. Giallo kind of style thing. Then we have this really cool version from Studio Canal of the Wicker Man 4K. Love the Wicker Man. We got these as the final cut on disc 1, and then we have the director's cut and theatrical cut on disc 2, which is really cool. So we have all 3 cuts in 4K. Love the Wicker Man, classic movie. Had to import this, man. The American version sold out, and I was like, well, we're not putting a regular version out. One of my all-time favorite movies here, Tombstone. On 4K, had to have it. Love Tombstone. It's I gotta watch this pretty soon. It's my favorites. I see a red sash. I killed a man wearing it. Assault, Jack the Ripper. This is one from 88 Films. Their Nakatsu kind of line here. Assault Jack the Ripper. Looks sleazy. I love that kind of stuff. And then we have the Sorcerers, and this is what was the Michael director? I think it's the director Michael Reeves, who had an unfortunate end as well. The Sorcerers here from 88 Films, the Tygon kind of collection. I've grabbed maybe this one, and I'll probably try to get more of these. I have a lot of these already on Blu-ray, but I did not have the Sorcerers. Boris Karloff in here, so cool stuff. Let's get out of here. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.